If you're old enough to remember when phones had cords and the only thing that went viral was a cold, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Big 6-0 with Kaylee Harris and Guy Rawlinson. Because who better to discuss life's second act than two people who still think mature is a type of cheese?
Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Big 6-0. I'm Kaylee Harris, and coming over to my place for a game of mousetrap a bit later is my primary school buddy, Guy Rawlinson. Hi, Guy.
Hi, mousetrap. Oh, I thought it was going to be Kaplunk.
It was going to be Kaplunk, but I went with mousetrap because I don't know. I just did. Now, look, I'm not old enough to remember a time without TV, but I can certainly remember black and white TV. Colour TV didn't arrive in Australia till 1975, but 2 years before that, one of the most, or around about that time, if I got it right, we'll find out in a second, one of the most iconic Australian TV shows debuted on our screens. We've talked previously about other shows that we used to watch, like Division 4, Country Practice, Matlock, a lot of Crawford productions. But a whole new genre launched in 1973. It was 73 or 75. Hold up some hands for me, special guest. 75, there you go. It was, of course, the Mike Walsh Show. It ran from 1975 to 1984, 5 days a week. Now think about this, 90 minutes of live TV, 5 days a week. That is a lot of content to find. And being live, anything could and often did go wrong. The man tasked with making sure everything went smoothly in that 90 minutes was, of course, the floor manager who later went on to greater things in the program, the wonderful, I love him to bits, Mike Williams. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Kylie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you going?
You like Kylie, or do you like
love Kylie.
Van Boober? Or Van Boober?
I should probably explain for our listeners.
We should tell people that seriously. It's been a running gag for about 20 years now. Sorry.
That's right. We've been working together a long time, and for somewhere along the track, we started calling each other silly names.
I don't know how it started.
I don't know how it started either. And so yesterday when I messaged you, it was like, Zen Lube, what time is the podcast tomorrow? And you were like, well, here's Linka.
And it's just gone on from there. So
it's just gone on from
anyway,
there. But it is, of course, the amazing Mike Williams, and we're so...
Yes, it's lovely. It's lovely to be here. Lovely to be here too, by the way.
Thank you. It's great to have you. Now, the program, I want to talk about your life as well, but let's kick off with Mike Walsh. The program launched on what was then the O10 network. What was the TV landscape like in the 70s? I want to talk a bit about what you were doing before Mike Walsh as well, but it seemed like television back then was risque. You know, we've gone too PC, I think, maybe these days. What are your thoughts on television in the 70s?
Well, they were fantastic days, I must admit. I went straight from school to Channel 10.
Wow.
And I was hired by the chief engineer. I remember going for the interview, and I ended up kicking off in the slides department. And in those days, they used to put slides on the television, and I would take the slides and clean.
So how did that work?
Well, they had these machines in this big area right in the middle of the station, and they used to put the slides in, and it used to rotate around them. They also used to have tiny little commercials in little reels, around that big. I'm showing and no one could see me, but they were the way they did commercials, and they had a slug on them. So when the slug went through, it would tell the operator who was putting everything to air that they were about to come up to a commercial break, or the commercial was about to end. I'm digressing here, but that's what it was like in those days. It was a fantastic time. I went from there into news, and I was a news cameraman assistant for some time. So in those days, I was lucky. There's always things available. There's always opportunities. If you wanted to do that, you could go in and say, can I try that? And they let you do it. And that was one of the great things about that. During those days, there was a guy called, he did a Tonight Show. I think it was not Ray Martin, but there was his name was Martin, and Joe Martin. And Joe Martin had a Tonight Show in those days, and I used to go and watch them record it in the studio, which was fantastic and exciting, and they had an audience. And I just wished I could do that. And that was the start of me wanting to be involved in the production side of things rather than the other side, which sort of I took that step and eventually went and I worked on Number 96 for 2 years.
Wow, that's just an iconic. I mean, there was the box and Number 96, and being a younger bloke, you'd sort of crawl up the hallway because Mum and Dad were watching the box and Number 96, and you'd sort of think, oh, what can I hear? Or can I see something? What was it like working on such an iconic Australian production?
It was a lot of fun because the crew were all young guys like me. Everyone was young. You know, there were the senior directors who we all respected so well and all that, the lighting guys. They were sort of older, they'd been around, but they came from theatre. So, because there's a lot of vaudevillian stuff and like the old Theatre Royal and whatever, a lot of people came across into TV from those areas. So they were very well respected. But basically the crew itself, the stagehands, all that sort of stuff, were all young guys like me, and we just had a ball. We really did. And I was there building the sets, worked with this guy, and we had to put these sets in, the Sutcliffe set and Dorrie Evans' set, and we had to do that the night before. It was good. And there was this set dresser who knew exactly where all the pictures went. So he knew where to put a certain thing in Dorrie Evans' unit and where the photo went, the number on the door. So there was all that really amazing stuff, memory of what he had, and he had that of every flat in Number 96, which was quite amazing. It really was. But I enjoyed it to the full extent, and it was sort of at the end of that I got shifted into floor managing on a show called the Mike Walsh Show, and that was the start of that as well. So I'm just saying, it just evolved. It was amazing. As a kid, I learnt to tap dance. I had elocution. You know, kids doing elocution these days? No. My mum put me through elocution. I learnt to dance and tap. And so all that, once the Walsh Show came along, I said one day, I've done all this. And I was able to, when I was asked to do stuff on the show, like sing, dance or whatever, it was there. Not that I was fabulous, but I'd had that experience. And that was so good. It really was.
Where did Mike come from? Mike Walsh come from?
Do you want me to be rude?
I don't remember him
No.
before the Mike Walsh Show, but obviously he had a television presence or experience.
Well, he was radio. He was one of the good guys at 2SM. He was in radio, and with, as you know, John Brennan. John Brennan was on there in those days as well, and that's where I guess he cut his thing. Before that, he worked at a chemist, that I understand, in the old days, basically. But he came from radio and had that really good voice. And because in those days, you probably remember that it was all to do with the voice. Hello, I'm John Laws, It was all that sort of stuff. Whereas these days, you could be Dan and be on radio.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, with the Mike Walsh Show, everyone knew you as Shirley Temple, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And
Sure, yeah.
that came from the whole luscious locks sort of looking thing. And is that how it all started, from going behind the scenes to sort of sometimes in front of the camera? What was the story with that?
Well, the way that started was at Channel 10. We used to record over 2 days, all the shows for that week. That's the next week that was coming up. But we'd had breakdowns. Things went wrong. Walsh kicked got a bit angry and walked out of the studio, went to his dressing room, and I was left there with this just a small audience. So I was always the clown at school, and I always was like that, and I just started doing a few routines, and it just sort of evolved from that. Pardon me, and someone heard me do it, and they said, "Well, we should do that more." So I ended up doing the warm-ups, and that's where all that sort of evolved of that sort of stuff, which was it was great stuff. And there's some stories with audiences we had once we got in, because once the show took off, we went into the Studio A, because there was A, B, and D studios at Channel 10. Studio A was the big, that was the go. And look, and we started rating unbelievable. The audiences grew by, 10 times. And I started doing those warm-ups, and it just went from there. Walsh and I had some routines which we got into, and this is live to air, but not on air. But before we came out of a commercial break, we'd start an argument, just for say. And as we came out to 3, 2, 1, we go, I'm not sick of that. And you hear the audience. The audience was laughing. People kept saying, what was going on in there? It was all that. So we took it to that level as well. And Walsh was great at that. And he was great at seeing characters, great at seeing talent, inviting people on. And I just use the word evolved, but it's true. The team, apart from the producers, the team on camera evolved. It just, over time, the Jeannie Littles, the John Michael Housen, oh, hello girls, how are you? All that stuff. It just evolved. And we ended up with, hi there. Mike, I'm Dr. James Wright. Ah, yes. Hello, Mike, how are your piles? Because you always used to ask him how his piles were. It's true. It's true. And Michael always had to say, I haven't got piles. And it was yeah. But John Wright, he was lovely. He was a lovely old fellow. He passed away now.
Passed away a couple of years ago, but I still remember that. Hi there.
Hi there. And he did radio on that as well. But it was great.
He did. And when you think back of the numbers, I mean, like the show was pulling numbers around 5 million nationally. Yes. It was syndicated out through regional stations. Mm-hmm. It was a huge deal.
There were country towns that used to stop at midday so they could all watch the show. Yeah. We use some people, because we're involved in Airbnbs now, my dear wife and myself, and we've got a lovely couple of elderly cleaners that help us out. And one of the cleaners said, I used to watch you all the time. We used to stop and watch the show, and I watched it for you, which was nice, but there was a following. I had a fan base, and then of course the radio happened after that. But it was great. It was really good.
But it was the original water cooler TV, wasn't it? I know
it was.
And you're saying that an era that PC was a lot looser. Were there any particular sort of jokes or routines or something that you just couldn't get away with today?
I used to do a gay routine. I don't think I could get away with that at all these days. And when I say gay routine, used to send up, people and how many S's in steak and all this sort of things. But you can't do that anymore because people get very upset. No. There was that sort of thing. Yeah. But, a lot of the team were gay that worked on the show, and they loved it. And it was that sort of thing. Jeannie Little coming out with almost a breast showing. There was all that, but it was, can't do that. So in those days, you could get away with things that were said, just infinitum that you got away with. Could have been about, maybe people with dark skin. Could have been any of that. There was the pantomimes where people used to black it up.
Yeah, that's a Twitter meltdown right there, isn't
it? Yeah. No, it's true. But that was the one of the pantomimes we did. I think it was John Michael Housen. He played the Black Mama in Gone with the Wind Up. It was called Gone with the Wind Up. And I look forward to the pantomimes. As a lot of people did at the end of each year. They were written by a guy called Bill Wallace, who did a fantastic job, and everyone played a part. And it was good.
We think about the other characters on the program, like Jeffrey Harvey,
lovely man.
Yeah,
lovely man.
He was a really important part of the show as well, like yourself, right?
Well, once again, I was asked when we finished at 10, when we moved to 9, because the story was that Mr. Packer said, "Get that bloke's signature on, and we'll put him on tomorrow, straight away tonight. Get your signature." And there was a bit of toing and froing, and at the time, it was a lot of money that he was paying. Yeah. Mike to go over to Channel 9. And what we did, we inherited Jeff Harvey. Because at Channel 10 we had a guy called Jack Grimsley, and he was a very well-known musician and an MD, which he looked after the show very well. But we moved to 9, Jeff Harvey, and he and I got on so well. We really did. We had this, if you want better, marriage in what we did. And that was in the studio as well. We did stuff together. When we went away, we went to Melbourne. We did the show from Melbourne sometimes. Jeff Harvey was a prankster. And the rule was, as long as no one got hurt, it was open slather. We stayed, I'll give you a quick example. We stayed at the Windsor Hotel in Melbourne. Beautiful at that time, well, it probably still is. A lovely hotel where, you put your shoes out at night and the next morning they'd be clean and all that sort of stuff. Well, I put my shoes out one night and I woke up the next morning, there's a pair of high heels there. I've had a knock on the door for a breakfast for 10 people. Just silly, just really silly things. But that was Jeff Harvey. The best one I used to love, well, I could tell the story, was that he had this beautiful place in Sydney, just out of Sydney, and he threw this big party once. He loves throwing parties, and he said, bring your swimmers, terrific, yeah, and everyone brought their swimmers and everything. He didn't have a pool. Some people arriving with towels and in their swimmers. No pool. No. Anyway, but that was Jeff Harvey.
Outside of that immediate production family, you had some incredible guests and stars on there. But I want to go directly to the Debbie Reynolds video clip that I saw. And you must be one of the only people in the world that actually was able to put your hands on Debbie Reynolds' bum. Can you sort of talk us through that little episode?
Well, Debbie Reynolds was a guest on the show, and as you know, we used to have stars that come in and had movies out, whatever, and they featured on the show over a week sometimes. John Cleese, whatever. Debbie Reynolds was another one. She got on really well with Mike, and they went out to dinner at nights and all that sort of stuff. And she came on the show. She became very good with friends with a young gentleman called Simon Gallagher, and he played the piano, very, very good. And they got on. She got him overseas to work in Vegas or whatever. But this one day they were talking about the shoe shuffle. And Walsh, I think, said something like, oh, Cheryl does the shuffle. And with that, she got up and then she grabbed me and started doing T for two and two for T. We did this sort of shuffle thing. And then she grabbed me and, we ran in circles. And then she grabbed my hands and slipped them on her bum. and I grabbed her on the bum, and she did only for a minute, but it was, half a minute, but it was just something that happened at the time. You talk about, live TV. That was one of those moments, and I've seen that thing that travels around all the like Facebook and whatever. I mean, it's quite amazing.
I mean, when you look at some of the guests that were on the program, like you said, John Cleese, Johnny Cash, the Village People, even Big Bird got a run. But some of the lesser known guests on the program were, and I'm sure I've mentioned this to you previously, was my uncle Brian Harris used to come down on the program once a month or whatever it was, and he'd bring down an animal from a wildlife park where he managed in Queensland.
Vaguely remember.
Yeah, and he would have like a koala, or I remember, and one time he brought down a baby crocodile to the program, and he'd bring these animals on, and I was 10 years old, and I remember thinking my uncle was so cool because he was on the Mike Walsh Show, and it was a great time in his life and for us as well. But it was just those regulars, like you said, like hi there, and Jeannie, came to love those regular guests.
Well, you did, and they, as I say, became part of the team, became part of the family, if you will, and they all had their own part in the show. They all did their own thing. Jeannie did her thing, Housen did his thing, Harvey did his, I did mine, as silly as it was. I ended up doing film reports as well, which was really good. I flew with the roulettes. That was fantastic, flying with the roulettes, doing, Mach 3s and all that sort of stuff. I learnt to lion tame in the circus, where I nearly got eaten by a bloody lion. It's true, it's true. There was a whole lot of other stuff. One of my favourite people that came on the show was someone called Michael Crawford. He's wonderful guy. He came over to my place in Balmain and had dinner one night because he saw me on the show doing, hello, Betty, a lot of things in the whoopee, all that sort of stuff. And he loved that. And Frank Spencer was just one of those characters that was just whatever. But he was a very nice man. Told me how his agent at the time ripped him off for all his money. It was really a sad story. He's quite sad at that time. But the old clown, the old story about clowns, hey, they're all outside, but when they get home, they're all really sad and all that. But that was Michael Crawford. Loved him. Robin Williams was another one that I got to know fairly well. He came out for the Logies, and he did the show. Because any band, any major person did the Walsh Show, you know. And of course, with the name of Williams, we sort of likened to that. And he was a lovely, lovely man. I was extremely upset when his departure from this earth, because he was just a brilliant, amazing performer.
One of a kind.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking about Logies, 24 Logie Awards the program won. Jeannie got one as well in 1977, and Mike got one in 1980. But like I said, anyone who was anyone, you had to be on the Walsh Show. But tell us what happened when the show folded. I think it was 1987, I think.
I think it was 85 into 86.
85, okay. What did you do after the show folded?
I cried for about a week.
Oh.
It was, look, we knew it wasn't a sudden thing, but we knew that there was something going on with the cricket. And Mike, we went into nights, which really wasn't working. I thought it was a bad decision to go nights. That's when Mike decided to put Ray Martin on the daytime show. We went to nights. And then there was a big argument with Kerry Packer, the cricket. He wanted to take more time off in the nights, off the show, and Mike just blew his thing, and that was it. He said, "See you later," and it was an end of an era, and we sort of knew something was going on, and I was not dragged into the office, but asked to go into the office, and we were told that we're coming to an end, and all good things must come to an end, but just very sad, and there's a lot of people. A lot of people affected by it, and even viewers, that just set their day aside to watch the Walsh Show and to see what happened on the Walsh Show. I'd go to work every day, and I didn't know what was going to happen. We knew it was going to be on, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to be asked to do. There was a thing called You're On Productions, where we're running short, and the producer would say to me, just coming out of the commercial break, "You're On Productions, we need you." So I'd run over to Jeff Harvey and say, "Listen, if we do this, I'll do this routine." And then, okay, all right, well, and then you're on. So we had to come up with improvising. So that sort of thing. That's why I used to love going to work. It was really lovely, but very, very sad, and affected a lot of people.
So where did the road take you after that? The immediate years after that.
I had a break for a little while, to be honest, and then some friends of mine said, "You've got to come and do Expo 88." And Expo 88 was another turning for me, and that's where I hosted with Trevor White, Jesus Christ Superstar, who is still the closest friend of mine that we've made. I said we rang each other Christmas, and so we've stayed in touch. And it was the Aquacade show, high diving, Aquacade swimmers. It was an amazing thing. We alternated out of the main role. That was fantastic. One day, someone said to me, "There's someone that wants to meet you at the back," and it was John Brennan. And John Brennan said, "Mickey boy, Mickey boy, would you like to do some radio?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, it'll be overnight. It'll be midnight to dawn, but I think you'll do it really well." And I said, "Oh, okay, brother." So at the end of Expo, I almost went straight to 2UE in Miller Street. It was the old 2UE in Miller Street days. From there, I've 33 years in radio.
Wow. Look, before we move on a little bit, as far as the Mike Walsh Show is concerned, what's the legacy you think that's left as far as, audiences and people, who would have, because they would have regarded yourself and Harvey and Jeannie as part of the family as well, wouldn't they?
No, they did. They did. But moreover, I think it's memories. The legacy that we've left is a memory of historic stuff that used to go on air on TV in Australia. Something we never see anymore. You see The Voice, you see all these shows, The Block. It's not the same. It's not the same. As I've used this word before, but, the evolution of the way this show just started and grew. And that was what people really liked. And I think people embraced that, and we were part of the family, absolutely. And I guess memory is the big one. I love having older ladies, God bless them, come up to him and say, are you sure? You know, all that sort of stuff. Oh, thank you for remembering me. You know what I mean? So I think memories and good thoughts and positive things about those days, which keep people smiling.
Because there's a big difference between so-called reality TV today compared to live television back in the 70s and early 80s, wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, you know, you had Don Lane, Bert Newton, those sort of, they were very Melbourne, and there was always a thing, rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne, but they were sort of similar, but in the daytime we seemed to get away with a bit more. It was more sort of, oh, how you doing, and all that, but for us it was, g'day, how you going? Now listen, you know, it was all that sort of stuff, if you understand. But yeah, I don't know. It's gone, and a lot of people say, "Why can't we see more variety? Why can't we bring back the?" You know what I'd love to see? I would love to see the Mike Walsh Show put back on Fox, or you know what I mean? On
Yeah.
replays and all that. But
yeah.
Mike doesn't want to let it go. He doesn't.
Oh, okay.
He owns it, and he doesn't want to. It'll give us all legs, as we say in the business, if you know what that means. It would give us all legs to for people to see things I used to do or whatever, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about you, I got to know you maybe 10, 15 years ago. I was asked to produce your program on 2GB, and we started to work together on the overnight show. One of my funniest memories was you used to play tricks on me, you prankster. And one night I don't know how we got onto it, we were talking about backpackers or whatever, and you said, and I'm answering the phones and stuff, and you said, well, my producer Gretchen is a backpacker from Germany, and her English isn't very good, so it needs to learn to speak English better. So if you could give her a call and speak some English to her. And I was looking at you through the glass going, I'm going to kill you. And all of a sudden the switchboard lights up, and I pick up the phone and I say, hello, TGB. And I felt like I had to do a German accent. I'm saying,
German accent.
hello. And there's people going, Gretchen, I will speak English to, and I could have killed you because this went on for hours, and
I remember
you
that.
played these jokes on me all the time. And I think one day you said, and even another night you said, politically incorrect, I guess, again, you said, well, my producer tonight, Charlene, she's a lesbian, and not that there's anything wrong with that.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, these calls start coming through, going, "Oh, you know, it's so lovely to talk." And I'm looking at the window, going, "I'm going to kill you." But that was the best fun that we had overnight, right? We had so much fun on that program, didn't we?
At that time of the day, you could get away with a little bit. Mind you, there was a couple of things that I didn't get away with, and I was brought into the office the next morning. But by and large, it was fun, and I had a great following. I did that for many years, the overnights on there, and I did that at UE, and then went to GB, and it was great. It really was great.
The regular callers would ring up, and
sure.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to bring you to about now. Correct me if I'm wrong. About 5 or 6 years ago, you had a major medical episode.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. I remember it at the time.
You came and visited me. You were lovely.
Oh,
you really were lovely. I remember that. There's a lot of things I didn't remember about the whole event, but I remember you were very supportive, and you came and saw me. And, you were lovely, and I can publicly thank you for that. If you hadn't done that before. No,
thank you. Nothing compared to what you went through. Tell us what happened.
I've had trouble with my heart, and about well over 14 years ago, I had a 6-way bypass, and it was a big operation of the day, and I was lucky to have a really good surgeon who did it, and I sort of lasted on up until I don't know how many years ago was it? I don't even know how many.
I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah.
I was at home, just cooked a barbecue, and I fell over. I just hit the deck, and my wife thought I was joking, of course, and she said, Mike, get up. And I didn't get up. And, of course, then it dawned on her that I had a massive, well, we think it was a heart attack. They still don't know what it was. And the ambulance was called.
But your neighbour played a big part in your...
I was just about to say, Paul from next door, who's a chef, local chef, came in and gave me a CPR, which broke 4 ribs. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be around. But the problem was, between then and I went to hospital, there were 2 ambulances, whatever, I passed away. They lost me. I didn't breathe for well over half an hour. And the doctors said to my wife at the time, not my wife at the time, was, what do you like to do? Would you like to just let him go? And she said, no, give him a go. And I came back. There was a lot of hard work coming back, because when I finally came round, I was a really angry patient. I was really angry. I don't know why. I don't remember any of it. A lot of people said, did you see the white light? I said, I didn't even see Kerry Packer. I didn't see, it was quite an amazing time that I experienced. And then I did come back. I went to a special hospital. They did physio with me, and there was a time where they put photos in front of me, and I didn't even know what a hippopotamus was. The brain, I had a lot of brain failure, believe it or not, and just through learning and writing and doing, I sort of stepped my way back. A lot of people don't, the doctors, they call me the tank, the doctors, because they couldn't believe a guy that went through all that and survived, and did what I did. And here I am to tell you the tale.
And we're all only getting older a day at a time, but it's a reminder that life can turn on a dime, right? Was your outlook changed after that, or are you just winging life with charm still?
No. I believe I was brought back for a reason, and that reason, I think, was to keep doing what I do and to keep people happy, smiling, and be Mike Williams, as much as people hate, loathe me, or think I'm fantastic. And that's what I'm trying to do. As I push on to even to this day, basically. And it's a pleasure to be able to tell people the story. A lot of my friends said, well, why don't you go and jump on the bandwagon like a lot of people do and tell people about heart attacks? And I thought, well, no, I don't really want to do that. It's not what I do. But I can certainly talk to people about it. But yeah, it was an event, and I don't remember a lot of it. And I was apparently a really bad patient when I was coming around.
Well, we're so thrilled that you're still with us, and you played a very big part in my life, and we enjoyed some wonderful times together.
You in mine, you in mine.
And I really was keen to get you on the podcast and to hear your story. And a lot of people would obviously remember you from the Mike Walsh Show days and that side of you and the Shirley Temple days, but there's another side to you, and there's a beautiful, warm person in there. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling us your story.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and thanks for thinking of me and remembering and maybe, getting me on and having a chat. It's great. My pleasure.
And Mike, off air, I want to talk to you about Abigail, okay?
Well, I'll talk to you on air if you like.
That's another day. That's
I'll
another
let you
day.
boys
That's
go
another
to
day.
It, right?
Yeah, I'll let them all remember that one. But yes, that was the story. But I'll say goodbye.
Can you just give us one more, Dr. James Wright?
Bye there. Lovely to be on the show. And yes, make sure, Dan, you fix up those piles.
Mike Williams, thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
And before we go, let's give credit where credit is due. Kaylee Harris and I came up with all the genius content for this week's episode. Our producer, Nick Abood, well, he keeps the lights on and makes sure we don't accidentally upload a cat video instead of a podcast. So thanks for keeping us on track, Nick. Nick?